Hello, St. Lucia, and welcome back to the Information Command Center. We have been re-energized, if you will, and we have been re-energized at a time that St. Lucia is definitely combating the coronavirus COVID-19. I am Lucia Joseph. I'll be with you for the next hour or so. We're bringing you some of the information regarding the predicament that we're in right now. We know that the numbers for COVID-19, the infections, are growing exponentially. The Prime Minister last evening did speak with the nation on the measures that are being instituted to help slow the infection rate of COVID-19. One of the key measures is a state of emergency and a curfew that has been instituted. That curfew is from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. That comes into effect as of today, the 3rd of February 2021. Also, the government of St. Lucia has been very proactive in not just mitigating COVID-19, but there are so many issues surrounding COVID-19. And one of the key issues is that of education. And so we know that schools are out for until next week. The school will remain closed and until the 10th of February. And following that, there will be further pronouncements on what exactly will be happening with the education system. However, one of the big action plans is the provision of e-books, electronic devices for students. And today, the 3rd of February, this morning, there was a handing over ceremony for 5,000 e-books along with MiFi devices, which allow students to use the e-books if they have no internet connection. And so that ceremony was held at the Financial Administrative Center, and we're now going to bring you that ceremony in its entirety.
The National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, NTRC, after a request from the Ministry of Education, agreed to make a contribution to the education system in St. Lucia by supplying a learning tool for school children and teachers. The need initially materialized with a submission dated April the 24th, 2020, from the Ministry of Education seeking assistance from the Universal Service Fund, USF, of NTRC for 500 computers. One of the mandates of the Universal Service Fund is to ensure the reasonable availability and affordability of basic and advanced telecommunication services, including voice telephony and internet access, as well as broadband connectivity over both wired and wireless networks at the community, household, and individual levels. The initial request fell outside the USF normal mode of project implementation, but due to the unprecedented nature of COVID-19 and its impact on the education sector, the emergency procurement procedures, as outlined in the regulations, was used. The commissioners of the NTRC, in consultation with the Honorable Minister Guy Joseph, agreed that 4,000 devices should be provided to reach a wider cross-section of students across the island. The learn books were sourced from a recommended overseas supplier who already supplied learn books devices to the Ministry of Education. And in addition to the learn books, MiFi devices were added for those who would require internet access. The learn books devices were supplied by Fortuna Pix Incorporated and the MiFi devices by Digicel Limited, St. Lucia. The contracting between Fortuna Pix and the NTRC took place in August of 2020, while the contracting of the MiFi devices between Digicel and the NTRC took place in September of 2020. The process leading up to the contracting was extended due to the Universal Service Fund internal procedures and the lengthy negotiations with the suppliers. I would like to express our thanks to Digicel St. Lucia for their participation in this important venture. NTRC is pleased to be able to contribute to the education system in St. Lucia, and this is the largest project undertaken to date. The total cost approximately $5,688,640 EC dollars, over $5 million, or almost $6 million. On behalf of the Board of the Commissioners, the staff of the NTRC, in particular the Department of the Universal Service Fund, headed by the Administrator, Ms. Sandra Jones, and her able assistant, Natoya Cassius, for their leading role with the suppliers. I would like to express our sincere thanks to our Minister, Honorable Guy Joseph, for working with us on this project. Also, to Honorable Gail T.C. Ruggerbert and the staff of the Ministry of Education, Ms. Nancy Charles, the staff of the Office of the Prime Minister, for seeing such an important contribution is made for the education of our children here in St. Lucia. Thank you very much.
Perhaps to expound a little bit more, I would like to now call on the Minister for Economic Development and Telecommunications, Honorable Guy Joseph.
For the first time, I think, since I have been Minister, my portfolio of telecommunications is highlighted because it doesn't come generally under my when my portfolios are called, you don't have telecommunications. So maybe it's a good thing we are here today. I want to take the opportunity because it's a moment of celebration. It's a moment of achievement for us, not just as a government, but for the people and the children of this country. Because we've had a lot of discussions over the years about what is the best device that can be utilized in the education sector. We've had a lot of discussions in the parliament, in the media, and everywhere in relation to computers for children, laptops, tablets, you name it. This has been the discussion. I have to applaud the Ministry of Education in the approach that is taken towards providing devices for children, because it is not just a device that we are presenting here today, but it's a learning instrument. It's an instrument that is equipped with the necessary material for the advancement of our students educationally. And I think that is the point that I really want to highlight. Because yes, you can go to any store and you can buy a device. But when the device comes with the material that is needed, I think that is where the difference comes in, and that is why I have to compliment the approach taken by the Ministry of Education, that even if these devices are coming at this stage, the fact of the matter is you have to plan properly in order to execute well. If you don't plan a program, and we've seen it, many devices have been presented in the past, but have they contributed in a meaningful way to the education sector? Have they been able to reduce the cost of operating for parents? I also want to thank the NTRC. As you would recognize, these are challenging economic times for any government. And the team at the NTRC, both at the commissioner's level and at the administrative level in the office went to work overtime to get us through this process and to get through it successfully. Because there are stipulated guidelines that must be followed. And everything that was done, nothing was done in breach of the established procedures. So it did take us some time to get here. And you would know that even with the supply of devices, that it is a challenge today, given all of the global challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, as far as it relates to manufacturing, the shutdown in many places, the availability of shipping or transportation from where the devices are produced to getting them into St. Lucia. But I think that they are coming at a very critical time. And while the NTRC is supplying 4,000 of these devices, a combination of the work between the Prime Minister's office and the CDP project, we were able to finance an additional 1,000 devices, which makes it altogether 5,000. So if we add this to what the Ministry of Education has done previously, which is another 3,000, then we are looking at 8,000 e-books that would be made available to our secondary school students. I also want to highlight the MiFi package, but outside of the MiFi package, we are at an advanced stage of negotiating or signing off on an arrangement with Cable and Wireless. So these MiFi devices are provided by Digicel, and our Universal Service Fund is used in a way where the various projects we are undertaking has to go out to tender, and the company that gives us the best package is usually chosen. So we have a second set of packages that would be coming out from Flow, which is going to reach another 5,000 households in St. Lucia with a package of local channels, also with some data included in it. So if you look at just what is happening here, you would see that we would increase the level of penetration with internet access to a fair percentage of the households in St. Lucia. And the persons who would qualify would fall within a certain economic bracket, and that is being determined along with the Ministry of Equity to finalize the list so that we can sign off on this arrangement. All of this is being done as part of an overall plan. We want our people to understand that what we are doing is not just reacting to situations, but there is definitely a bigger plan that eventually we would have the level of internet penetration to every household in St. Lucia. Because you have the other programs where Wi-Fi services are becoming available at public institutions, in the squares and the community centers in various communities. And I know that with what the Taiwanese government is doing along with the government of St. Lucia, and what we would be doing along with the NTRC, that even outside of these 5,000 households and those who would be getting the MiFi devices, that there would be another layer where in public places you would have access to free Wi-Fi. So I want all St. Lucians to understand that what we are doing is that we are preparing our country to be in a place where the technology shift that is taking place will not take anybody by surprise or will not leave out anyone in the country. Presently, with what the government is doing, we also have the rollout at the transport department, and I know it's happening at the courthouses and in the birth certificate places, that more and more services are becoming available online. So in the transport department, we now have 17 services available online. So even while we have scaled down activities in terms of person to person, a lot of these services are becoming available online because we are definitely moving swiftly to the e-platform of government. And I am pleased that the Minister of Education is driving that process within the education sector, that we can see a major shift in the education profile as far as the use of technology is concerned. And even if the COVID pandemic has forced us into a direction that maybe it would have taken us longer to get there, but nevertheless, we are using this opportunity to get there much quicker. And so I applaud everyone, and I thank my team at the NTRC for the wonderful work you have done. I know you had to have several meetings and work overtime and do a lot, especially Ms. Sandra Jones and the role that you played in this process. The acting chair, well, not the chair, but the director at the NTRC, the manager, you also played your part in making this happen. Well, the commissioners, I expect them to do that because that's what they were appointed to do. Nevertheless, Minister of Education, we are very happy to be part of this process and to be able to collaborate with you and your department. And I know your PS and your other persons played a critical role in assisting us to get there. So to all who contributed, we thank you. And we trust that our students will take good care of the devices and that they will make use of it. The MiFi devices has limited data, and so we would not want them to waste the data to download movies and do other things, but we would want them to use it primarily for their education, and there would be monitoring systems in place to know how well they are using it for the purpose for which it was intended. So thank you to PM, Minister, and everyone for making this a reality for our students in St. Lucia today. Thank you very much.
This is not a one-off, but there is a plan. There has always been a plan coming out of the Ministry of Education with reference to e-learning. And perhaps to tell us a little bit more about that, we will now call on the Minister of Education. But before we do, I would like to call on Ms. Sandra Jones, who is the administrator of the Universal Service Fund, to officially hand over the MiFi devices and the LearnBook to the Ministry of Education before we hear from the Minister.
With your kind permission, allow me to reflect on the journey that has taken us to this point. You will recall when we assumed office shy of 5 years ago, we reiterated our commitment to ensuring that no child will be left behind and that this administration would invest all of its resources to ensure that indeed we're able to develop a globally competitive education. In fact, soon thereafter, my colleagues and I within the ministry, with the kind assistance of some people outside of the ministry, conceptualized what we dubbed the hashtag Educate St. Lucia initiative, which itself contained several pillars, one of which was the integration of technology into the education system. There has been so much conversation about how to go about integrating technology into the education system, the efficacy of previously implemented approaches, the adequacy or inadequacy of equipping students with just the artifacts of technology, and what really constitutes e-education. A few months ago, sometime last year, if my memory serves me well, if not the year before, because last year seems to have gone by so quickly, in a statement that I delivered in the House of Parliament, I took the time to explain the ministry's comprehensive interpretation of e-education. And that for this government and for the Ministry of Education, e-education was equivalent to an ecosystem that had at its center the integration of ICTs. And that it was made up of several components. Infrastructure, particularly technological infrastructure, connectivity, and you'd have heard lots of conversation about the involvement of CARSIP, GINet, the Taiwanese input, to allow for broadband connectivity in many of the schools and communities. Devices, and by devices we mean desktop computers in schools and ICT centers, tablets, laptops, and the learn books you see displayed here today. Another component was what we dubbed digital competency. And by that, we mean ensuring that there is sufficient training for teachers and students to allow for them to better leverage the technology, not only the hardware, but also software and other learning platforms that can enhance the learning and teaching experience. It is that comprehensive integration of ICT in education or e-education that has informed and undergirded the policy thrust of the ministry. We wish to thank the various international, regional, and international organizations, local civil society organizations, NGOs, and civil society, and the private sector for their part in ensuring that we receive the requisite resources and support to deliver on our government's promise and my ministry's fervent conviction that inclusive education and integration of ICTs are key features of education in the 21st century, that even small island developing states like St. Lucia can aspire to. For those who do not know, this is the third wave of learn book distribution taking place here in St. Lucia in under a year or so. This program started off as a pilot implemented at a select number of schools, with the third formers being the recipients. That was well before COVID struck and caused us to accelerate the implementation plan and to incorporate all third form students in all secondary schools. However, precisely because of the need to turn to online learning or distributed learning, we recognized that we would have to incorporate the lower forms as well. We engaged with the service provider and asked that he include, or that the company include, not only the curricula for forms 3, 4, and 5, but also the curricula for the lower forms. And that is the value added that we get with these learn books, that they are indeed technical devices that come with the CXC curricula in the first waves for forms 3, 4, and 5, and subsequently the lower school forms 1 and 2. The inclusion of the curricula means several things to students, teachers, and parents. It allows for more equitable access to school material because each child who has one of these will have access to the curriculum. The technology also allows for interactive learning. For example, in the natural sciences or in history, taking students to virtual tours, to places that perhaps they would not have ordinarily been exposed to in the traditional face-to-face engagement in classrooms without the supporting technology that is embedded in the learn books that we have here today. It allows for parental involvement as well. It allows for real-time engagement with teachers, tutors, so that the requisite academic support that students need can be accessed by those students and delivered by the teachers. Bon, c'est ça qui nous gagne. Tout ti mamay set lisi, qui ni yon an se learn book sa la. Si maman yo peut-être pas teni l'argent pour acheter livre ba yo, si maman yo pas ni l'argent pour payer pour internet, si peut-être yo ka rester dans place en haut check mon et ben derrière mon ko peut-être ni digital ni flow pour ko sa arrive yo pas ni internet. Ça nous ka wè devant nous aujourd'hui. Nous ka essayer wè ki chacun ti mamay en set lisi. Ki yo sorti a famille qui riche et ben famille qui mal. Yo kay ni sa yo ni bwizen pour yo apprendre à l'école. Et ka sou marché, ça nous ka fait jodi a aussi. Ou ka wè an ti bagay blanc là, ça nous ka kriye MiFi. And I want to thank the telecommunications agencies, companies in St. Lucia, who came to our rescue in the first wave of the lockdown and donated some of those devices, so that those students caught on the hard shoulder of the technology divide could be brought into the full fray of the educational experience. That is what we mean by comprehensive. That is the real gain to be had. That you simultaneously respond to several prongs of the education system and the social and capital development of the country and the children. Further, being fully cognizant that COVID-19 had brought on with it either new challenges or had exacerbated existing challenges, we were forced to then consider, where do we turn to for the resources to outfit the additional forms and classes in the education system, especially given that we were turning to the online learning experience because of the lockdown and because schools were closed. I want to thank the government and people of Taiwan because they have come to the rescue. They continue to demonstrate that even at a time such as this, when countries are looking inwardly and addressing their own domestic challenges, that they have lived true to their commitment to partner with St. Lucia in the social and economic development of a sister island. I want to thank USAID and UNICEF. Both of these agencies continued to fund and introduce new funding so that we could televise educational programs during the shutdown, and through USAID, continue with the Pro Futuro project, which again endeavors not only to outfit schools with the technology, but to equip students and teachers with the know-how. Allow me, in this setting in particular, to thank Minister Guy Joseph, the board of the NTRC and the NTRC staff for their part in ensuring that we could live true to our commitment to ensure that eventually every child in this country will have what he or she requires. And it never hurts to have an ambition that stimulates the entire population and that collectively we work towards achieving it. NTRC has proven a good partner in that endeavor. I don't know how Mr. Prime Minister and Minister for Finance does it. But again, it is precisely because we perceive the social capital of our country to be so significant that even at a time when the pandemic itself has shrunk our resources, still education remains a priority. In fact, now more than ever. So I want to thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for living true to your promise that this country will continue to hold on to the ambition that we will have a globally competitive education, and we are edging towards realizing that goal. I wish to thank my permanent secretary, Ms. Michelle Charles, and her team. I wish also to thank Jermaine Anthony, the IT guru, curriculum development specialist. I wish to thank Mr. Joshua Werner and his team for working tirelessly during the lockdown, because it is one thing to receive 4,000 devices, another 3,000 laptops or learn books. These have to be formatted, especially the learn books, to ensure that they are technologically congruent with what we have in school, and that the curricula as described and agreed to contractually, that these are on there as well. I want to thank the curriculum specialist from CAMDU, who reviewed the subject content on there to ensure that it's very much in tandem with what that is being delivered here and is also culturally appropriate for our students. I want to thank the teachers and curriculum specialists for that. Are we there yet? No. Have we fully realized the ambition? Not just yet. But it is thanks to the benevolence, cooperation, and partnership of agencies such as NTRC, the World Bank, the CDB, because through the project funded by the CDB, the EQUIP project, we've also been able to furnish teachers and students with devices. And in particular, I want to underline that we were able to furnish students and centers and facilitators with devices specially outfitted for special educational needs of those students who we know we dub as special. There are so many people to thank, but while I'm thanking, I want to do some asking. Because we do need a couple thousand more, PS. I can see you smiling behind the mask. And I want to put some of our friends on notice that we need to hasten the procurement process, because we know that the Global Partnership for Education has also promised several thousand devices through the OECS Commission right there on the Moon here in St. Lucia. We know too that one of our World Bank projects with the local champion on here being Marlon Narcissus, that we are to receive some devices through that means as well, and several others I won't mention. But just to indicate that we are on course. And we are edging towards delivering on that commitment. And I trust that more partners will come on board as together we ensure that St. Lucia, notwithstanding its size or development status, we as a government will continue to ensure that the children of this nation will be adequately equipped to participate meaningfully in the global economy, the knowledge economy, a digital economy, where geography, color, race do not bar you from maximizing on the opportunities that the global economy can offer. You too, St. Lucia, our children can be part of that global knowledge economy, and it's thanks to what we are doing here today in part. Thank you.
I want to first of all thank all of you for making today happen. As was indicated by the Master of Ceremonies, this has been a long journey. And I want to say that a caring government is not about getting in the government and saying that you care. Caring is something that has to be genuine, has to be in your heart, has to be in your DNA, and has to display itself in your every single day actions. But like every great emotion, it must first start with a vision. The United Workers' Party, when I had the opportunity to be elected as the political leader of that part, of that great party, history of developing this country, we decided it was time for us to reshape our vision, mission, and values as a party. When the party came into existence in 1964, under the leadership of Sir John, they went all the way until 1997. And I think we can all look back and talk about the progressiveness of that government. But the fact is that every great institution needs to be re-energized. So in the area of education, which was one of our party's top priority, the vision says it all. The vision says that we want to establish a globally competitive education system. I'd like to think that we were one of the first to start framing it that way. And I am encouraged and empowered that some of the greatest countries in the world now are adopting that vision. You're now hearing it more commonplace. Because it wasn't just about teaching kids to learn to read and write, or to measure our success by how many kids were going to school. We felt that we had passed that. And our caring is in our ambition. Our ambition for something better. And back in 2013 and 2014, the idea of a borderless economy, which we can term today as the digital economy. That's what the digital economy is. It's a borderless economy. It's the ability of our nationals to get a job here in St. Lucia, at a world level salary, and stay here and to support their family. We understood as a party and now as a government, it's not about individual income, it's about household income. That's how St. Lucians have learned to survive. That's how we've become resilient people. And that we don't abandon our family the moment that we get a better job, but we allow the members of our family to benefit from that security. The mothers who took up vending, not because they loved it, because it was a way of making additional money to be able to support their children to become educated. And I keep speaking about those late 60s, 70s, and early 80s, where St. Lucians displayed the level of sacrifice and caused the greatest transformation in our country. And that's when the middle class of this country really grew. Out of the sweat and sacrifice of many of those mothers who wanted to see their children have a better education. Many of them aspired to be doctors and lawyers, accountants, and many of them, armed with this new education, left, and some of them never came back, only to come back in the form of what we call remittances. Still continue to make a contribution to the development of our country. We've had a vision and a passion to make sure that we can equip our young persons to be competitive on a global basis. There are two terms that are being used interchangeably, and yet they're very different. Persons confuse the digital economy with a smart country. Smart St. Lucia is a major objective of this government. And what is it? It's laying down the infrastructure to facilitate us interacting on a competitive basis globally. We've understood, because of climate change, that we have to embed resilience in everything that we do. The new roads with proper drains and proper sidewalks. The new schools with backup generators and water storage tank facilities. The new healthcare centers that are also equipped with backup generators and refrigerators, so that in case you are cut off in a community, that we can store medicine. This is the foresight of building a smart country. The use of CCTV cameras. The new road networks. And very importantly, e-government. That we are on an ambitious and yet for some an impossible campaign that before this summer that we'll have over 50 government services online, which kicked off last year with the driver's licenses. You can now get your driver's license and pay for it online. The idea that you can get your passport, you can get your birth certificate, that you'll be able to pay your taxes soon online. That is a smart city, making it easier to function and allowing government to facilitate and support you, the citizens of this country, in an effective way. And yes, it's understanding that technology is generational. I watched my father struggle with the iPhone, using terminology that is alien to him. And he's done really well, but he will never appreciate the technology to the level of a young student who has grown up with a smartphone and is so advanced and teaching themselves online. But it's our job to make sure that the elderly of this country are not left out, and that there is a need to continue to have face-to-face support to provide them their services, but benefiting from the processing of those applications. The GNet, in making Wi-Fi available to all of our communities of this country, and recognizing that not all parents have the capacity to do so, which is now supported by this campaign that's been started by NTRC to get cable package to 5,000 households. And embedded in that cable package of local TV, NTN, and all of our local stations, is a Wi-Fi. So a grandparent who now can watch their TV and inviting their grandchildren over, the grandchildren have access to Wi-Fi in their own home. These are some of the things we take for granted every day, but are important because we know the importance that grandparents play in the development of our students. Parents who are out working, where do they send their children to? Grandparents. And they can go to the grandparents' home and maybe they're not interested in the local TV, but they can be on their their devices and would probably want to go over to their grandparents, and becomes a win-win situation, because I keep saying the greatest medicine in this country is love. Love overcomes so much. But that I don't have to teach St. Lucians. St. Lucians have known that for a very long time. The e-books was something that we had envisaged from early in opposition. And I want to say that giving a child a laptop is good, but not good enough when there is better. A laptop by itself is a great gift to give to a child. It is. But not good enough when there is better. And the question is, how do we integrate that laptop technology as a hardware device with software that integrates now our school curriculum? How do we understand that we need to get teachers to spend less time administratively and more time on teaching? And so that this is what this e-learn book does. It's a win-win-win situation. Situation in which teachers now know how long a child spends reading a chapter. Homework is done online and kept track of. So when the child arrives at school, the teacher's already given a report that says how many hours did the person spend, and if in fact they completed their homework. And a simple question of somebody who says they've completed their homework will reveal whether in fact they did the homework or somebody else did it for them. It keeps track of all of the communication between the parent and between the teacher and the child. So if a parent wants to know what's been taking place, there is the physical evidence as to that level of communication. Because of Wi-Fi, a student can be at home and be getting tutoring from the teacher because it has a whiteboard facility on it, in which the teacher can actually be drawing it out. And the part that probably excites me the most is the fact that references are linked here. So a student doesn't have to spend an enormous amount of time researching and finding out where the support material is. And the minister made the reference in terms of where are we taking this to. We've said, let us measure our teachers. Form 5, 6, Form 3, 2, and 1, down to primary school. Who's the best teachers we have? Who's the best teacher we have in geography? Who's the best biology teacher that we have? Why? Let's film that teacher. So as an added reference, in addition to your own classroom experience, it's now supported by additional education from what is considered to be the best teacher. What have we done? We have made the access to education equitable. The idea that we believe that we have to send our child to another school outside of our district to live with other people simply because we want the best for our child. This levels the playing field. This makes the best teachers available to all the kids in my constituency, in Agen, Blasha, and in Tirocher, and in Chic. They don't have to leave home to go up north to say that they've gone to the best school. They have access to the best teachers. And what is so exciting is that that is how information is going to be given globally. We're seeing MIT and Harvard and Ivy League schools now providing what? Online learning. And so it means from a young age, students are becoming accustomed to being taught in that regard. And I believe that we are giving the greatest boost in the most difficult times. How do you know how great a country is? Is to put it through a tough test. Well, we've had that tough test. with COVID. And this idea of coexisting with COVID was an important principle, that we would not allow COVID to define us, but that we would find ways to take advantage of this opportunity to apply our energies in this time in which they were not wasted, not sitting on the sideline lamenting about COVID, trying to guess as to when it's going to be over and when we can get back to some level of normalcy. I believe St. Lucia will come out of COVID stronger than it ever has been before. And this device, and here we are today, is testimony to that. Testimony that we're on the right track. Testimony that we can do it for ourselves and create an education system that has the nuances of our culture, but the competitiveness of the world. And I am even more energized with the announcements of Google and international companies that all of the persons who are currently working from home will continue to work from home. What does that tell me? That tells me that this borderless digital economy is here. It has arrived. When I see the growth of our call centers and Ojo Labs, that they're bringing these international jobs to St. Lucia. When I hear that the US is going to increase the minimum wage to $15, that encourages me. It means that the countless number of young people who are still unemployed, and let me say to you, 2% of young people unemployed is too much. So I end where I started. In order for you to do these things and to have the passion and the persistence to follow through on these things, you must care. You must feel the pain of everyone every day when we didn't achieve what we were supposed to achieve. And it has pained me during this time to know that we knew. But because of resources, it makes it more difficult. But you have to learn to prioritize. We are prioritizing healthcare in this country. We're prioritizing education in this country. We're prioritizing security in this country. We're prioritizing infrastructure in this country. And those four things combined are our future. This is what's going to allow us to be world class. That is what our goal and ambition is. And we make no apologies for that. So I want to congratulate the Ministry of Education. I want to really thank the Minister of Economic Development and NTRC for their incredible support in making this happen here today. And I want to say to the young people, make us proud. Thank you.
And you've just watched there the official handing over ceremony for some 5,000 learn books, what we refer to as the e-books, as well as the 5,000 MiFi devices, which will be distributed to secondary school students. And the students will be receiving at forms 2 to 5, and the MiFi devices will be allowing the students to access the learn book even if they have no internet connection. The overall cost for this project is in the region of some $5.68 million, and that's coming under the NTRC, the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, as well as the Office of the Prime Minister giving those devices. The company, the supplier is Fortuna Picks. And just to give you some information about Fortuna Picks, and you can go on and do your own research. Fortuna Picks is a digital publishing company with headquarters in the United States. There are some 150 employees at offices across the U.S., providing digital solutions to education systems all over the world. Fortuna Picks global authors develop curriculum-specific digital books that are used in the classroom on smart boards, tablets, desktops, and laptops. And Fortuna Picks enhances such digital books with multiple digital assets that aid teachers in teaching and students in learning. The digital books are customized to local, cultural, and language requirements. Now, Fortuna Picks, the reach extends to across the US, the UK, Canada, India, Mexico, Afghanistan, and within the Caribbean, the digital solutions are deployed over the years to Antigua and Barbuda, the Virgin Islands, as the British Virgin Islands, and we also have Grenada, who also uses the Learn book, and I think that has been from since 2019, if I am not mistaken. And now St. Lucia is rolling that out. This project has been in the pipelines for at least over the last 2 years, and we've heard from the Minister for Education, as well as the Chief Education Officer, as well as the Permanent Secretary over the last few months, that such a project does not roll out merely by overnight, and certainly COVID-19 has accelerated the rate at which the project has been implemented. So once again, the digital devices for students onward for distribution. That's it for me here at the Information Command Center. You can tune into the center again. That will be tomorrow morning. That's on a Thursday morning. Jesse Leos will be with you for some of the latest updates regarding St. Lucia's national response to COVID-19. I am Lisa Joseph. See you next time.